It is, I'm really excited. There's been a lot of firsts for the Feliciano Center, and this is our first meetup. And so it's a little bit for me, not for you maybe, but for me it's a little bit of a historic occasion because this vision we have for the Feliciano Center is starting to slowly come together, and one of our strategies in order to create this ecosystem around the center, one of the strategies is through creating a very robust meetup. A meetup where the startup community can come and benefit because of the caliber of the presentations, the caliber of the people that we attract, because of the resources here at this really terrific university. And I'll drop a footnote here. Montclair State is a university of 18,300 students. We have very talented faculty. We have centers of expertise and creativity all across campus. And the thing that we really didn't have formally was an entrepreneurship center. So one of our strategies is for this center to link to all those centers of excellence, all that talent, all that creativity, and do so in ways that those students can get their degrees, exercise their creativity, get a little bit of this entrepreneurial spirit or innovative thinking, because all of us knows how important that is in today's economy. And it's just not for those who want to start their own business, it's also for those who are in businesses, because all of us in our businesses have to continue every single day to reinvent ourselves, to change our business models, to react to all of those forces. So there's a lot at stake here, and the idea of having the center, the Feliciano Center, surrounded with real entrepreneurs and have a really robust program on campus for entrepreneurs is just a really key and part of that. So this is it, the first one. I should say special thanks to some of the folks here. Dean Kreit, whose vision this is and who is just a really terrific dean of the business school, but also a visionary in entrepreneurship. We have Mimi and where's Eddie? Oh, there he is. Mimi and Eddie Feliciano. I don't have to say more. Feliciano Center for Entrepreneurship. Their generosity is incredible, and their vision is also incredible and inspiring, so thank you so much. We have lots of, I really am happy to see so many faculty here, and I was telling somebody just outside a minute ago, our faculty are so talented. The research they're doing, the problems that they're solving through their research it would surprise everybody in here, the breadth of the research, the problems that our faculty is trying to solve here across campus. And I think that's an awesome resource for the entrepreneurial community and the startup community. And again, that will be, I think, part of our secret sauce. I'd like to thank Kimberly Hollister, our Associate Dean, who's here, and some others. Where's Peter? Peter right here, Kestenbaum. Peter has been helping me, the first class. Peter and I are going to co-teach in the fall. So there's lots of folks that I could thank. And where's Phil Mattia? Phil, thank you so much for all your help in helping us get this together. So very briefly, I want to say a word or two about the goals of the Feliciano Center. And you've gotten a little drift of this already. It's a resource for the entire university. And the whole idea here is that we create an experience for our students that is real life entrepreneurship. That our students are provided an environment, an opportunity to become entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs. That means they're given problems to solve. They solve those problems. They come up with their ideas. They come up with their business models. They test that business model with customers. They understand what works, what doesn't work. They pivot. They continue to work on that model. They come before a panel of experts, and they get the feedback, whether it's, that'll never work, to that has promise, to, wow, that's a winner. But in doing so and throughout that process, have the students work with entrepreneurs from day one. And that's part of what we're doing with this robust the ecosystem around the center, is trying to build the capacity so that students work with real entrepreneurs. So no matter what we do, they're students of Montclair who are at, what's at stake here. And I think we all agree that's a very important thing to do, because these are the students who are going to go out into the world, who are going to pay our Social Security at some point. And more than that, they'll be the innovators, who keeps our economy strong, keeps us competitive, keeps jobs coming, and do all the good things that we need to do. And as I alluded to before, one of the goals, I think, of the old physics problem, the potential energy is energy that is stored, ready to be released. That is what we're going to unleash in terms of the capacity of the university. Goals of the meetup, first meetup. I am going to try, with your help, to create a really robust meetup for this community in this area. And by doing that, to have excellent presentations, to have top-notch startups and all that startup community be here for our programs, to have it valuable for all of you, to have that conversation be valuable, and to build that ecosystem around, around Montclair. So this evening, we have 2 presentations. Here's how the evening is going to run. Startup Valley. Startup Valley has a really interesting area in the or space in this crowdfunding area, and Daryl's going to take us through Startup Valley. Daryl's an alumnus, by the way. Daryl, where are you going to be tomorrow? So why is a guy who's invited to the White House tomorrow here with us tonight? I don't know, but we're very glad you're here. And Matt, his COO, is also an alumnus of Montclair. And Adam is not an alumnus, but he's the CFO, and he always wears the tie, so you always know that he has control. So thanks, guys, for being our first presentation at our first meetup. Second presentation is One Horn Transportation. Cheryl and Louis Byron are here with us. If you read the program, you know that Cheryl is the CEO of one of the 50 fastest growing women's firms in the nation, as represented or recognized by a couple of prominent organizations. And they have a really interesting story to tell about taking a traditional transportation model and turning it into something that's, in my mind, pretty amazing, glued together by a really sophisticated software programming package that does a lot of interesting things. Afterwards, we'll bring everybody up. Daryl and Cheryl and Louie, and any kind of questions that you have, question their business models, anything that you want to hear from them, expound. We'll do that for a bit. At the end, there'll be a little bit of time for if there's any of you who want to make an announcement or ask for help or ideas. We're trying to make this as open and get your input as much as possible. So does that sound like a fair game plan for this evening? Again, thanks for coming, and I'll invite Daryl Bryant of the Startup Valley up to the podium.
Thanks, Dennis. Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? All right, great. Well, Dennis, thank you very much for inviting me out to speak today. This is a special day for me. I graduated from Montclair State 13 years ago now, and when I went to school, there was nothing like an entrepreneurship center. There was nothing even remotely close, and I had that entrepreneurial spirit and that entrepreneurial drive ever since I was a little kid. So before I kind of dive into and share my story, I just wanted to see who's kind of out here in the audience. So who is currently running their own business as we speak today? Okay. And who's kind of thinking about, almost ready to venture on starting their business? Okay, great. And who's kind of in the infancy stage and just says, you know what, I'm kind of aspiring to be an entrepreneur, and I kind of want to see what's out there, and I'm just kind of interested to see, where this goes. Okay? And I understand there's some students in the class as well, or in the audience, right? All right, very good. So a big question that I always get is, how did you first know that you were an entrepreneur? How did you find out that you had something inside of you? And just this past year, Matt and I celebrated with one of our ventures, Hudson Horizons. We celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and we basically pretty much started right out of school when we graduated. And during our celebration, my parents reminded me of when I was a young boy, and I was in 5th grade, and my father had one of the first printers of the time of all my friends and all my classmates. It was a dot matrix printer. It wasn't color. And I think we had an IBM, I think it was a 3086 computer. And I think it had 20 megabytes of hard disk space. And if you think about that now, that's about 10 pictures. So we had MS-DOS on there. And we had a clip art program and a NFL football helmet program. So during the football season, I would print out on 8.5, 11 sheets of paper every NFL football helmet, and I would bring them to school, and I would sell them for 10 cents a piece. So nowadays, if I try to do that, someone would take their cell phone and chuck it at me and say, I have the NFL app, So during the season, I made about $50. And then, of course, I had my fair share of lemonade stands and newspaper routes, and I sold Cutco knives door to door. So I always had that aspiring entrepreneurial spirit until I entered college. And I stumbled upon a really great product that I can create in college that would target many college students. And the company was called Liquor Lamps. And as you can guess, we made trendy lamps made from recycled liquor bottles and sold them to college students. So my biggest challenge was trying to find a team of people who can help me finish those bottles so we can turn them into lamps. I'm just kidding. I actually found out that the local bars and clubs and restaurants, they would actually have to pay by weight to get rid of their empties. So every Sunday, we'd go around to the local bars and clubs and take away hundreds of bottles, which was weight and dollars put back into their pocket. So they loved us. And we went on to making lamps. And I wholesale ordered all the products to build these lamps. And at first, we bought bases. And eventually, we learned to make our own bases to cut down on costs. And we built this to a pretty successful business. It was called liquorlamps.com, and sold these online, sold them kind of face-to-face with people. Until one day, Jack Daniels sent me a cease and desist letter and said, this is defamation of brand, you're crossing over on IP rights, and reached out to an attorney, friend of mine, and he said, yeah, you're kind of on tough waters here. So I decided to fold the business and focus on some more serious ventures. And then that's when Matt and I started Hudson Horizons shortly after college. And for 2, 3, 4 years, it was just Matt and I. And, we struggled every day. We both worked at different restaurants, waiting tables at night, and then kind of worked at Hudson Horizons during the day to build the business. So we worked 80-hour weeks. We worked night and day. And we just believed in what we were doing. So we set out to build a web development company. And we started designing and developing websites. And then we started designing and developing a few more. Then we got into marketing and social media and search engine optimization, pay-per-click, and you name it. And now we're a fully integrated agency with 25 employees. And we've turned an idea and 2 entrepreneurs from Montclair State University into a multi-million-dollar agency. And that's kind of where we are today. And now we kind of took the idea of creating websites and creating what we call web portals and created it over into this new venture called Startup Valley. And if everyone's familiar with Kickstarter and Indiegogo and Rocket Hub, those are more rewards-based crowdfunding. Is everyone familiar with those? A lot of nods. Okay. So basically, you're seeking investment from the crowd and small dollar donations from a large number of people. And that's what crowdfunding is all about. So Kickstarter, Rocket Hub, they allow you to do rewards-based crowdfunding. So maybe you're giving a $25 donation, you're getting a t-shirt in return. Or maybe it's the Pebble watch, and you're giving $125 to pre-order that watch. So you're gonna get that watch in return. Well, now there's been a new act that's signed into law last year called the Jobs Act. And this Jobs Act stands for Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act. And this is now going to allow private companies to raise capital through the crowd and sell equity ownership in their company. So never before has this been legal. This is lifting a law that's been around for 80 years called the 1933 Securities and Exchange Act, set forth by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. That's basically why they're put forth and set forth, was for investor protection, to protect the entire community. So basically this is lifting those laws and allowing everything to happen now through the internet and through crowdfunding. So this is a revolutionary change in how companies are going to be able to raise capital. And that's some of the biggest challenges that we always faced, Matt and I, when we were running our companies, is how do you get access to capital? Maybe family and friends in the beginning, but from our experience, and sorry if there's any banks in here in the room, but we've never had a bank lend us a loan or give us any money, especially if you're a startup. If you're less than 2 years in business, don't even bother. Don't even go and try to talk to a bank. So crowdfunding is going to create a new asset class, and it's going to allow people like you and me to invest in private companies and really diversify our portfolio in terms of all these different ventures. So we're on a very exciting and very interesting space right now, and Startup Valley is focusing on the technology sector. So we want to focus on companies creating mobile apps, anything in the technology space. Could be eco-friendly, green technology, healthcare technology, you name it, that's kind of where what we're focusing on. And just to kind of touch on some of the challenges we faced over years, not only raising capital, but being an entrepreneur it's not always easy. People always ask me, what's inside you that makes you a true entrepreneur? And a lot of people will say it's being passionate about something. It's being motivated. It's waking up every single day and working your butt off to get something done. But I think the biggest thing that makes a great entrepreneur is that fire in your belly, that anxiety in your chest every day, or anticipation in your chest to wake up and just do something great, do something passionate, and not let anything get in your way. Not let anyone give you negative thoughts and let that get in your head. And just kind of work every single day and turn that fire into an internal flame that's inside you. And eventually, it's just something that's built inside you, and it's just part of you. And that's really, I think, the most successful thing that's made me a successful entrepreneur over all these years. So now, Startup Valley, we're working with the SEC. We're trying to get these things passed. And tomorrow, yes, I am going to the White House, where I've been invited there. It's called the Champions of Change ceremony. And it's about entrepreneurs across the country who are doing amazing things and sharing their stories out there to the world. So I'm part of that, and it's my first time at the White House, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I look forward to the panel in a few more minutes, so thank you all for coming out today.
Just getting my little thing is charged here, sorry. Come on up. So we're going to be presenting together. I'm Cheryl Biron, and this is
Louis Biron,
and we are the president and
COO
of One Horn Transportation. No, we won't do it that way the whole time. We'd like to thank Dennis for inviting us, and Kimberly Hollister for introducing us to Dennis and to the Entrepreneurial Center. We think you have a great program, and so we're excited to be part of the first meetup that you're having. And so we actually have a PowerPoint because We come from a little bit of a different background. We weren't born entrepreneurs. We kind of became entrepreneurs later in life. So we have a PowerPoint, but it's not that long. And so tonight we're going to tell you our story. And our story is about our journey from employment to freedom. Okay? And the journey started off, we were on the traditional fast track as people working in large corporations and being employees and all of that. And then it ended up on an entrepreneurial path. And so we're going to really frame our story and have some themes that have come throughout the evolution of our business. And the themes involve automation and constant reinvention, which is through strategic planning regularly, very regularly. And then we also have a lifelong learning theme. We're always trying to learn and grow and improve our business. And then we also actually, we act very quickly on what we learn, and we really impact our business. And so we created a format that has several different categories that we're going to use. And I'll take you through that through an example, which is where we started out. So you can kind of see maybe in your businesses, there are some areas that you can look at that you need to maybe improve or evolve upon. And so we started out as employees, okay? So the businesses we were in, I was in marketing, and Louis was in a private equity PE roll-up. So I was doing brand management, typical MBA job. Louis had been working for Brinks before that, running the New York Ground Armored and air freight for the United States, and then went to a private equity roll-up of a septic cleaning company, was running a big region of the country for that. And then, so our jobs there, employees, and our activities were basically managing other people's businesses. And in terms of scalability, the scalability limitation is a measure that says what is the capacity of your business or your enterprise to multiply and with the same structure that you currently have. So that's not scalable because you can't clone yourself. But later on you'll see in the future that you can scale and improve your income depending on how your business is operating. And then so our growth rate was really based on, okay, am I going to get a raise? Am I going to get a promotion, or maybe quit and move to another job and that kind of thing. And then we talk about reinvention, as I mentioned. Now reinvention here for us was reinventing ourselves from these MBA and corporate people to becoming entrepreneurs. And we were quite inspired. In 2004, we read a book called The Millionaire Next Door. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that book, but it's an excellent book by Stanley and Danko. And all the books that I mentioned on our website, www.onehorn.com, there's a page called Get Inspired. And so all the books that inspired us, I just wanted to share with people in general, either in our industry or just in entrepreneurship in general. And so there's a whole list of great books on there, and it's just for fun that we would share it with people, just to let them know kind of what we're like. So we read this book, and one of the key messages from that book was that you had to have the courage to take that leap of faith and sacrifice it all and become an entrepreneur. So we basically put our house up, we signed all these personal guarantees, and we decided to buy the assets of a trucking company. And why trucking? Because Louis' background was in trucking. My background was in marketing, and we could have done something to do with marketing strategy consulting and business strategy consulting, but that wouldn't have been scalable because it would have been us, and people would be buying our brains to help them with their businesses, so we couldn't really grow. And the other idea was maybe buying consumer packaged goods company, but then again, when you have people like P&G out there to compete with that, and all their brands don't succeed very well, so we thought that this was a much more practical thing. And one of the key reasons why we also went into something that we had done before was, like you mentioned, financing. We actually went to a bank and got financing because we had the background in the business because of Louis' experience at Brinks. And so the other thing that the Millionaire Next Door taught us, or reminded us of, I should say, because we should have known this all along, is that it's really net worth that matters, not your income. And so we completely slashed all of our personal spending because we were spending, kind of based upon what we were making and saving some money and that kind of thing, but we had to finance and fund this business ourselves. And so we realized that one of the big messages that you're trying to build your net worth and you're building an asset, and the asset we were building was our business. And so what we did was we basically purchased the assets of this trucking company, and the learning we had there was for us to be happy in life and in our business life was to go out on our own.
Okay, so it's PowerPoint, but it's one slide, so that's all right. I used to be a strategy consultant, so once you've done this, you can. So we bought a trucking company. We became business owners. What's a trucking company? It had 15 tractors, 80 trailers, 15 drivers, 1 dispatcher. Trucking company is very intense. Tax, regulations, payroll, labor, you're dealing with very difficult employees to manage, and the regulation is tremendous, and there's always a cop looking at your truck trying to find a way if they can raise some revenue from the state, just looking at your truck, and they're very good at it. So if you wonder what these scales are on the side of the road, that's what they are. It's revenue generation, I guess, with the trucking. Main aspect of a trucking company is all your costs are fixed on day one of the year. So whether you get revenue or not, you're still committed to pay these employees, pay these trucks, pay the insurance, and everything. It's all fixed costs. So that's the worst part I can say about a trucking company. What were our activities? Well, at least we were managing our business, but we did everything. We did accounting, HR, payroll, billing, sales, probably clean the office at the end of the day. We did everything. Now, what was the scalability? Well, the thing about a trucking company is all the costs grow in line with the revenue. You want more revenue, you need more trucks, you need more people. Everything just grows with the trucking company. So it's the worst kind of scalability. Yes, you can grow, but the cost is tremendous. What about the growth rate? Well, it's very simple. To add about $1 million of revenue in a trucking company, you need 4 trucks and 4 drivers. You're talking about $500,000 of equipment to be able to grow at $1 million of revenue. So you're very labor and capital limited at your growth. If you've got deep pockets, you can grow a trucking company very fast. But if you're self-funded like us, it's very limiting. Now, introduce the concept of working in versus on the business. Some of you might be familiar with the book from Michael Gerber, The E-Myth Revisited. And the concept is you either work in your business or on your business. But it's very difficult to grow your business if you're working in it versus on it. An example, if you own a retail store. And so if you're working in the cash register, you're working in the business. But if you're spending your day planning about your second location for your store, you're working on the business. And that's really what you need to do to grow a business and change it. But when we started, we had 18 people total, including us, and everybody was working in the business. There was nobody working on the business. What did we reinvented? We started a small experiment. When we bought the trucking company, we didn't even know what brokerage was. We didn't know it was a business. We didn't know it was an industry. But now we were in trucking, so we found out about it. And basically, in brokerage, you get an order from a customer to move something from New York to Los Angeles. Instead of using your own trucks, your own driver, you use another trucking company. Now they're responsible for all the pain of dealing with the drivers, the fuel, the taxes, the cops along the way. They get most of the margin though. But the big advantage is if tomorrow you don't have any work, you have no costs because you don't need to pay them. And that to us was tremendous. So we started at the same time doing a semi-annual review process where we would look at our business and look at what worked and what didn't work. And the thing we started doing is stop doing what didn't work and do more of what worked. And the brokerage would become a couple years later our savior when the recession hit, which was tremendously hard for a trucking company. So the last thing is through one of these review processes, we had a friend who was a former consultant at Booz Allen who listened to our review and so on. And he said to us, you know, you guys are not really entrepreneurs. He said, because you're not acting fast enough to change your business. And so that really shocked us. And so we became budding entrepreneurs.
So, as budding entrepreneurs, we really decided that we had to learn the brokerage business. And so Louis was doing the operations on the inside, and I was out doing sales, but I had never done sales before. I was a marketing person. I went on sales calls with the salespeople, once or twice a year, and I did the PowerPoint for them, but, sometimes I present, sometimes I wouldn't, but I really did not have any sales training. And so as entrepreneurs, one thing, I talked about all this lifelong learning. I went to seminars. I went to Sandler training. Sandler training was excellent. I went to a bunch of different webinars. I also read some of the Dale Carnegie books, and I really created my own style of selling. And I was actually quite successful in terms of getting new customers to try us out. I would go to some of the larger corporations with my PowerPoint. I'd go to the back of the loading dock with my PowerPoint and then decide not to use it because there was this guy there, that was all sweaty and, didn't want a PowerPoint. And so I had one guy who made fun of me because I brought my PowerPoint in and he was getting his PhD in something and he just, he thought it was fun. But he's a great customer now too. He walks around the office saying, one call to one horn, when we got him on board. And so, I got my own selling style. I did a lot of cold calling. I did a lot of networking, and it was really very important at that time for me personally to be doing it. So again, scalability. Limitation was how much could I sell and what was the sales cycle with the larger corporations, annual bids. You call them up the day after they put their bid out, forget about it for a year. And that's the kind of thing we're up against. The local companies that were a little smaller that I could personally go and visit and kind of, meet them in person made it a lot easier for me to get a little bit of new business for companies to try us out. But the larger corporations also wanted trucking companies more than brokerage companies. And then it's also what was Louis able to dispatch. We had another person who was also handling dispatch, but the limitation there was also how many trucks could they dispatch. And so it took it would take about 2 years to get $1 million worth of revenue. And again, Louis with the in and on the business.
Yeah. So by then we reduced a bit the number of employees, so we're down 15 but we have a one person working on the business. And basically it's a one person equivalent. Cheryl working on the sale, but still doing all the accounting and things that we did. And I started programming the system that we're now using to run the business. But the fact that we finally have one person working on the business became a big game changer for really started transforming our business. So as far as automation, we had an insight is that you hear all these stories about you spend all this money on this computer system and either it works great or it blows up. Our insight was that we set up a small framework and apps didn't exist so much at the time, but we just added one feature at a time. And we started with the one thing that was taking me the most time every day to do, and was an order entry for a customer. So I programmed that. Once we're done with that, it worked. We went to the next project. I lost count to how many projects we have, but if you look at the structure of the software now, you can see the projects one after the other. The advantage is if something fails, you've lost 2 months. You learn from it and you move on. It doesn't kill the business. So that was a great insight for us. Reinvention. Recession hit, and we did a lot of lumber, so we got hit first because the lumber died. We were stuck on these trucks, these trailers, but we had this experiment in brokerage, so we said, let's sell everything. We sold all the equipment about 6 months before I read an annual report from J.B. Hunt saying they were doing the exact same thing. The price of equipment in the market went down the drain, but we were able to recoup most of our investment just before. 6 months timing after that, we'd have been dead. And we moved into brokerage. What we learned, that is a lesson that we hear till today, is automate for the back office, automate before you hire somebody. Once you hire someone, they will never come up to you in your office and say, hey, this is how you can do without me. I'm sorry, I've never seen it happen. So we always automate, and our volume has been growing a lot, and we still keep automating. Whatever takes time, that's the next feature that we put in the system.
Okay, so then we went in the summer of 2010 to an event that was put on by the Wharton Club of New Jersey, and Solange Perret presented on innovation, and it was called Innovate Now. And Louis and I attended this, and we were so completely blown away by, I guess, one of the exercises that we did during this presentation, that in the car on the way home, we said, we got to change our business model, because there's no way that we'll be able to double, triple, multiply by tenfold the size of our business just doing the same thing and more of it. And so what we did was we decided to adopt the agent-based brokerage model. And so what that means is that we hire freight agents who come to us with a book of business. And they come with $1 million book of business, their own customers, but they also do the dispatch for that business. So we basically were effectively outsourcing both the sales and the dispatch for that pot of customers that they would bring on. And in exchange, we would give them the back office trading platform that Louis designed, Stratibo, as well as financing the receivable, because we collect the money from the customer and we pay all the trucking companies and we pay the agents. So we basically split the profit on every load. And so it's been a great scalable thing for us because we were splitting the profit on many more loads. And by doing that, if you're doing it only if there are loads. So if there are no loads, there's no one to split anything with, but there's also no cost associated with. So it's a completely variable cost model. Everybody that we have all over the country is an agent. They work from either a home office or they rent some space outside, but we're all connected through a virtual private network that Louis created. And everything is cloud-based. And so at that point, our job was really, we were entrepreneurs now. We weren't budding. We became entrepreneurs. And our job was really to build this home for the freight agents and really to create an environment where they would not want to leave, because originally we didn't pursue that model because we said, well, they could come with a book of business and they could leave with a book of business. But we decided it was incumbent upon us to create an atmosphere that was so attractive, that would be so wonderful to work at One Horn, that they wouldn't want to leave. And so besides having an excellent compensation package, because a lot of people can have that, we also just have an atmosphere where they feel very independent, like they're people who are business owners that want to grow their own businesses almost. They're entrepreneurs too. And we give them the freedom to really grow their businesses under our umbrella. And we also get them to feel like they're part of the One Horn family. And we didn't ever say that, but they spontaneously say that about us. When people join the company and they send the emails around, they say, welcome to the One Horn family. And these people have never even met each other in person. So it's a really great environment. So what we had to do from a scalability was Louis going to finish the software so outsiders could use it, make or buy a decision, or were we going to buy software and use somebody else's software? So we decided that what Louis had created was so much better than what was out there that we had him finish designing the software so that everybody could use it and log into it remotely. And it's been really great because it's also a great cost saving because we're not paying per seat of users as well. And then the other thing was with recruitment. The first time we did this model, we started using a recruiter because back in 2010, that was the way to go. And it took us about 6 months to get $3 million worth of business. So we've kind of improved for 2 years to get $1 million. Now we're 6 months to get $3 million. And that was something that was a great improvement on our scalability.
So back to the working in the business, on the business, still about one equivalent, but since we got rid of the equipment, the drivers went with the equipment, we're down to a 3-to-1 ratio. So actually, our people count went down, but the business is finally taking off. So as Cheryl mentioned, we went totally paperless because we had people all over the country and we couldn't be having somebody shuffling paper from one place to the other. So to this day, there's still a few papers that come in our office. They get thrown in a scanner. That's the last time we ever look at them. I had to build an infrastructure that allowed all the agents to be able to connect remotely, whether it's from their phone, their computers, and so on, so they can always share in the system, book their loads, and do the business that they have to do. And we moved everything to the cloud. For years, we had the phone system in our house. We had the database running in our house. And so you travel, if you lose power to your house, you're in big trouble. Move everything to the cloud. That solved this problem. A reinvention. We started, I say sometimes I don't care about the customers anymore. We don't really, because our customers are our agents, and we just all our focus is on agents because they're the ones who bring the business. We have very few customers left, and we don't spend time on it. Our focus is the agents because they're the ones growing our business. And our agents are the accelerator to our business. Customers, as Cheryl said, it's a long sales cycle. We bring an agent in, boom, you got a $2 million run rate business in a day. Or maybe it takes a week to transfer the business. But the speed is so much greater to grow your business. So on the lesson learned, The cloud equals travel. Once everything is truly in the cloud, I can run the business from my phone, my iPad, my laptop for halfway around the world. And I've done it. Since there's nothing in my physical office that I need to run the business, it doesn't matter where we are. And so we ski a lot, we travel, and we don't worry about it because there's never a piece of paper sitting on my desk or somebody who wants to see me because they never see us anyway. So, and last thing, Cheryl?
Yeah, and with that whole cloud and travel thing, the Millionaire Net, not the Millionaire Store, the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, another book, great about running your business remotely. During the whole sales experience that I had, I also learned about a whole subculture of a formal board of advisor groups. And I've been a member of several different groups in the past, and right now the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, is the one that I think has had the most value for me. And Louis is also a member too. There are 8,000 members worldwide, but then they have events in New Jersey. We have 80-something chapter members in New Jersey, so we have local events, we have regional events on the Eastern Seaboard, we have national events, and then worldwide events. And so there's a great deal of learning, and we've taken a lot of learning from those events. And if anybody's interested in learning more about EO, I have a link on the front page of our website just to be nice, because I love EO. In any event, one of the great things that came from that was during our EO experience, whoops, I went the wrong way. During our EO experience, we have come across a lot of different people who gave us a lot of, little nuggets of great ideas along the way. And also we have a business coach that's in the transportation space as well. And so we ended up recently developing a boutique brokerage strategy because we took a look at who was successful in our company and also how we can make our company more successful and grow, to get to that $100 million size, but keep the atmosphere of that family feel that everybody loves. And so we're now going to be pursuing premium agents, agents that have a much larger book of business so that we can end up having, 25 to 30 agents, each with, anywhere from, $2 to $4 or $5 million books of business, and then they would have agents, sub-agents working underneath them, and then they can call us, the main agent, and they, we'll still know them. They'll still have that family feel. And so that's our new strategy in terms of growing the business going forward. And so right now, what are we doing? Our activities, Louis is writing the code still. He's improving the business. He went to visit one of our top agents recently and found so many ways to make him more efficient through our new accelerator program that we launched for agents, that the guy is just blown over. He said, he's so happy that Louis came to visit him because now, he can work more efficiently, and the guy's hiring like 3 more people now to work for him, so it's really great. I work mainly on the social media and the recruiting. Social media, I made an agent-based website, an agent website only, so that instead of just having a page on my main website, I created an agent site so that we could talk more about the agent program. Then we have our presence on LinkedIn, we have our presence on Facebook, a presence on Twitter. And then we moderate discussions in the different LinkedIn groups. So an example about how the social media has really helped us with programming is this top agent that we mentioned saw our ad, which we had on one of the industry-specific job boards, clicked on One Horn, looked at our website, looked at leadership and team, saw our 2 pictures and said, oh, I recognize this woman. She's in my inbox from a LinkedIn discussion that I was participating in. And so the whole thing came full circle because being on LinkedIn, having that presence out there really gave us a lot of credibility and, let people realize who we really are and what we really believe because of the types of conversations we were starting and the knowledge that we were sharing. And so that's very exciting. And now I'm launching a blog on our agent website. And it's really a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now today that any entrepreneur could benefit from, but we're targeting it towards the agent to help the agent grow his or her business with that kind of slant. So that's very exciting. And then in terms of our scalability limitation, then we really only need to add like 1 employee for the next iteration of growth that we're going to be having. And the other thing is on the recruiting side, we've gone to, from 6 months to hire, $3 million worth of agent to 5 hours to hire a $2 million agent. And an example of how we've done that recently, we're about to go to Panama for EO, and I had to interview somebody at 9 o'clock the day I was leaving at the last minute. our employee found somebody who's really great. So I interviewed the person, Louis interviewed the person, I checked all the references, called the shippers that the person worked for, Louis got the person set up in the system, and then we left for Panama. And then 3 days later, the guy was booking loads and making money for himself and for us. And so we've really kind of churned and really tightened this whole recruiting system so that once the people come to us who we think are qualified, we can really get them on board if it's a good fit between our values and their values and what they're looking for and what we have to offer. And so I think it's your turn now.
Okay, so we added that concept to the in the business versus on the business, and we call on square. If you think about it, at first we were dispatching the work, doing the sales, that was in the business. And then when we started recruiting agents, now we're working on the business and we're bringing these accelerator in the business. But now what Cheryl is doing with the social media, it's accelerating the pace at which we're able to recruit agents. So each agent coming in grows our business 5-10% depending on the size of the agency. But now we're getting more and more of them on a faster scale, so it's accelerating our pace of growth. And so that's what we call in square, and we think we got one employee who's doing in the business, making sure everything works. And between Cheryl and I, one's working on the business. I'm still doing some coding that we need to get done. And Cheryl is accelerating, really putting the pedal to the metal. Automation, we're now helping to automate our agencies to get them more productive so they can be more profitable. We're finishing automating the accounting, and Cheryl's working on the recruiting. We think that by the end of the year, we should have most everything in place to be able to grow another 10 times without really needing any fundamental system to add to the system, which is the big difference is now, instead of just reacting, we're planning for the next few years of growth. What we learn, simplify, repeat. We used to take any agents that came in with any type of business and we'd bend over backwards to make them happy. We don't do that anymore. They come in, they got a weird business, sorry, it's just not our thing. And it makes everything so much simpler. Don't cater to all, just do what you're doing, accelerate the accelerator. And finally, our plan is to go from entrepreneurs to freedom. We expect to get the business to run by itself. We're hoping to be able to just do a review on a somewhat regular basis, but have the business run itself so we can do more of the skiing, golf, diving that we enjoy doing. Automation, if anything comes in the critical path by the moment, we think the system just can handle the volumes. It's not a problem. And as far as learn, it's to be determined, and we're looking forward to keep on learning.
So we thank you very much. We hope that you've seen how the automation and the constant reinvention through strategic planning, regular strategic planning, and then lifelong learning, and then applying and applying and applying and acting upon what you learn at events like these, when you read a book, when you go to a webinar, that kind of thing has really helped us grow our business. And also, we were very fortunate to have technological expertise in-house, but really technology is something that you can truly leverage to grow and make your businesses more efficient as well. So I hope that there are little nuggets that you could maybe take from our presentation that can help you, and that's kind of why we did this presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you. These are notes. Okay.
Oh, sure.
I'm going to grab my water bottle so I finish.
You don't mind.
All right. Okay. So we saw and heard from two businesses, completely different, going from this, I love this chart here, going from this asset fixed cost model to this very scalable, very lean model. But this is, I'm sure you have some questions, some observations. This is actually the chance to ask folks up here. There are microphones, so I would just appreciate if anybody who has a question, stand up, just tell everybody your name. And okay, change the PowerPoint. Okay. Oh, That makes
Please
me-
don't be bashful.
That makes me feel at home. This is your chance to have at it. We're right on schedule, so this is working out really well. Again, there's microphones for those who want to ask a question.
I was going to say, okay, fair enough. Thank you, all of you. It's been wonderful this evening, and I'm very glad I'm here. You all shared some wonderful kernels of knowledge. Larry, I actually have a question for Cheryl and Louie. You're talking about your premium agents and the family field that you have. Do each of these premium agents own their own book of business? Or do you own it, or how is it, just out of curiosity?
They own their own books of business, so they can, like I was saying, they could come with their book of business and they could leave with their book of business if they wanted to. It's their customers that they're bringing to us. And so, they would come and they would build and grow their agency with other people, but they would have their own book of business. And then the hope is that they would stay because they love One Horn so much because of our automation and all that kind of thing, the atmosphere.
Yeah, our only interaction with their customer is once a week. The system sends an automated email that kind of looks like it was handwritten, but it's not because it's automated. That tells us that sends them their statement with the orders they're open, what's overdue, and so on. But we almost never talk to them. It's their business.
One of the things, when I come from one of the reasons why I became an entrepreneur is I came from a family business that is not going to make it the second generation. And one of the things that, just for you all to think about is the fact that, are you helping them, because they all have their own family businesses, in essence, do some type of succession planning where you have, you can create a marriage. Maybe you've got, one shipper in Oklahoma, another one in Oklahoma. This family decides, we're going to retire. Maybe you can put them together. And it'll keep your business growing, and maybe you have the other ones grow as well. I'm just sharing something with you.
You want to take that?
Yeah, we have the business that the agent have is actually a fickle business in a sense because it can disappear very easily. We do have on the shelf a product, but nobody has needed it yet, where we'll facilitate transferring customers from one agent to the other when they're ready to retire. But at the moment, nobody's ready to retire, so we haven't put it into practice.
Yes, sir.
Question for Startup Valley. Two questions, actually. How does an investor that goes to crowdfunding monetize their investment? That's one question. The second question is, what are the current regulations for companies that are using crowdfunding as a source of capital raise? What are the reporting requirements right now? Do they go through the same requirements as an SEC filer or some other?
Sure. So, your first question, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
How does an investor monetize their investment when infusing capital for crowdfunding?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question. As any private equity investment, it's a high risk, high reward type of opportunity. So liquidity is something that people are always thinking about in this space. And that's something that we're thinking about at Startup Valley on how to help that process. But perhaps along the way, investors are going to get distributions, for their investment, or there's going to be some type of liquidity event in the future. But again, these are high risk, high reward type of opportunities that it's in the private equity investment market.
And then the second one is reporting requirements.
This minimizes the reporting requirements. They still have to file with the SEC, but this does minimize everything, and that's really why the Jobs Act was set forth, is to help streamline and ease this process.
Let me just
Yes, sir.
follow up with that, Alan Walter. But there are no regulations as yet under the Jobs Act. So what is the legal framework for what you're doing? There are no regulations.
Great question. So right now we're not live. We are allowing companies to sign on to create their pitch page on Startup Valley, but right now they cannot raise any crowdfunding dollars. There are other platforms out there like AngelList, Gust, and different things out there where they are doing something, maybe in the Reg D type of space, to raise capital and go through something that's not quite crowdfunding, but still what's legal today.
to have been ratified in February, March of this year. But that being said, the SEC offered a no action ruling on one or two players. I think it was AngelList and I think a second platform. But how, as this evolves and develops and grows away from accredited, when you have accredited investors, it's an easier play because that's regulated and they're very strong requirements. But once it becomes non-accredited, how do you protect yourself and the people who invest in your company that there isn't, that you're scanning and you're screening those investors, or is there no liability on your side?
That's a great question. So yeah, so there are other platforms out there that are doing funding for companies, not quite crowdfunding like we talked about. And yeah, they requested a no action letter from the SEC based on how they're currently running their operation. And so I think it was AngelList, I think, don't mark my words, but Funders Club maybe. I'm sorry, what was the second part of that?
So then the issue is when it transitions from accredited investors to non-accredited investors, do you have concerns about how your company, how you protect yourself from crowd issues, that you have some non-accredited investor makes an investment and then for whatever reason comes back to you and says, this investment didn't work out as we want to hope. How do you protect by screening those investors, or is there no way of taking on that exposure?
Sure. Maybe Matt can touch on this a little bit.
I mean, they are putting limits in place where if, when Title III does pass, there are limits to how much you can invest. The typical average investor, I believe it's up to $10,000 maximum, or 5% of your salary. Up to $2,000, you can make under $100,000. So the point there is that yes, there is obviously some limits in place to protect the investor. The other aspect is obviously, well, what if there's 100 portals out there? Can I just go and run up all this money through all these portals and then come back and sue them all? What we're seeing now in this space is there's a lot of specific industry places that are kind of emerging that we're a part of that's actually trying to aggregate a lot of this information. And by this aggregation, it's going to allow us to kind of help solve that problem.
And I think on top of that, there's a big education component that we're working in as well. So when they do come on our site, it's very clearly stated, it is a high risk atmosphere that you're getting into. That kind of helps alleviate that.
Wait, before Larry asks his question, every question's come from this side of the house. You guys are a little left out.
Dennis gave me a limit of 3 for the evening, so that's
Yes, sir. And then Larry, you can go next. I just wanted to get a little geographic diversity here.
I'll be happy to ask a question. Joe Knapp is my name, and I'm with Foxera LLC, which is a company that develops speech recognition technology. Well, for many, many years, I was in the commodity business, and I was a contract manufacturer. By the way, Louis, this is for you and Cheryl. I would manufacture product, and because I didn't know the means of production, I had a negotiated price with that manufacturer where I could sell it to the customer and still be able to sell it to the customer either at or lower than what the original manufacturer would sell it for. The principal part of that was shipping. So now I had to go either arrange my own shipping, where I would call a major carrier and either get a backhaul, at which point I would get a rate on either LTL or a full 40,000-pound truckload. And once again, I had to be able to get a trucking rate that allowed me to breathe and make a margin in there, the same thing as if that trucking company was selling directly to the client. My ultimate question is, I'm trying to wrap my brain around what it is that you guys, I mean, it's fabulous what you're saying, but what is it that you do? Do you provide like a clearinghouse for like the brokers that I used to call to do business with, so they can therefore, you can marry the shipper with the customer? I mean, I'm not sure exactly how that works, and I would hope you would clarify that.
We used to deal with brokers, you're saying? Or do you deal with
You're
the actual
providing a
carriers?
service to shipping brokers, correct?
Basically, I mean, we're a broker, and agents come to work for us. They could be a broker by themselves, but they don't have the operating authority, they don't have the financing, they're not able to run a business. They just want to sell and they just want to dispatch. And so we're, in a way, an umbrella company for the broker you would have dealt with. And you would still deal with that person, but they would be part of our company, and then we would handle all the back office and do all the financing with the operating authority so that they can legally broker the loads.
Does the broker pay you just a shipping cost? How How does that work in
We,
terms of the revenue?
the shipper pays us, we pay the carrier that does the actual trucking, the trucking company that does the load, and then we also pay the agent a portion of the difference. So say, for example, there's a load that you would have paid $1,000 for, we pay the trucking company $800 for, there's $200 left, and we split that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, back to, yes, sir.
Well, hi, I'm Chris Parker. I'm an educator here at Montclair State. So it's kind of a cognitive question. See if I can word this out now. Okay, the cognition of this. You mentioned before a little metaphor, let's call it, for the employees you have that would not find a way to improve their, whatever, their brokering or their billing, right? You said they would invent the software, so and they just stay there. Now let's use that as a model, let's say, for how a lot of people, not everybody, but some of our students think that way. They're in a successful paradigm, it seems, and they stay there, and they're not going to change anything. So let's let that model now represent a thought process. You obviously have hit, you guys do on both sides of this, hit the ideas where you're stuck in a paradigm, you've had to change the paradigm, and move on to success. Did you ever get stuck in a paradigm that just was not successful, but the culture, your minds, you thought you were damn sure this was the best thing? And then, how did you change that? How do you come out of moderate success to great success? Or how do you come out of failure of something that everybody says is good and move on? Yes. Was that clear or was that too much?
I have a very simple answer. We were stuck in the corporate world for 15 years. We grew up in the paradigm that you got the best education possible. Between the two of us, we got 5 college degrees. You got the best education you could, you got into the best corporation you could, and you just worked very well. It's being recorded. To get up the corporate ladder. And we were successful, we made money and so on. But, so that was the paradigm. But we weren't happy. And we had children that traveled all over the world and didn't see them, and we had to make a change. And that's what's been the rule since then in our business is you got to act. Just don't go through life thinking, oh, I should do this, just do it. And that's what we've been doing.
I got a good story on this one too. From the technology side, we were, this is really early out, we were starting out, and part of our business was hosting. They touched on it with the cloud. And we went to hosting company, and it probably wasn't the best hosting company. We found out a little too late. Basically, clients up there, things were going really well, and then all of a sudden, for what rhyme or reason, the company decided to pull the plug. Not just on us, but on hundreds and hundreds of clients. And at that point, it was detrimental. And honestly, after the whole week of moving everybody to the server, getting everybody up and everything, we only lost 1 client, which was amazing. It was just constant communication, constant letting them know, look, we know things got messed up. We're going to get this right. We're going to make it right for everybody. And it was, you're making a little bit more, but you're not giving the service you need. And it was a really good eye-opening thing to us, just to say, like, for everybody out there, you're starting your own business. Hosting now is cheap as anything. Pay the extra money for the redundancy, the backups, for everything, because everybody now has technology. And it's just the most important thing out there is making sure you are 150% protected.
Another answer, though, I guess, could be, we could have said the paradigm, we bought a trucking company. We want to grow it. We want to buy 100 trucks and be a big trucking company. And instead, we do our little strategic
course or 2 or 3 that you might have taken in, say, your senior year that would help you?
I think one thing that I did discuss with Dennis and some of the board members was, and I don't know if this is part of the syllabus or if it's just, maybe part of the program, maybe it's part of the end of the program, but some type of on-the-job or in the life of an entrepreneur type of day or week or whatever it may be. And I would, like for myself, I told Dennis, I would love to have some entrepreneurs who have been through the program or are going through the program to spend a day with me and in the life of what I do on a daily basis and kind of interact with my team, sit on phone calls and conference calls, and just see the decisions that are made as an entrepreneur. Because I think you could think about it, but when you've been doing it for 10 years, a lot of things happen and your day's pretty busy. so I think it would be great to see that, and I think that would have been an amazing experience if I had that as I was, being a student.
One of my biggest takeaways from my experience with entrepreneurship education is I had a whole class on networking, and it was just phenomenal in terms of how you can take, meeting somebody and how to find that perfect partnership or how to get a partnership through one of their, partners. It's kind of great just for coming into a class for an hour, simply just talking to people, different activities to kind of get some new things out of new people that you might have known for a while and you never knew some certain things about them. So.
I would say 2 things. The first thing I would say is the E-Myth Revisited talks about the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur. 3 different people in the one body who are constantly fighting for control. So, they use an example of a baker who loves to bake and then suddenly wants to have a bakery and then, discovers what it's like to be an entrepreneur and having to actually run the business and having to actually do the accounting and, everything. And so having a really great multidisciplinary background that tells people all the nitty-gritty that they need. Because when we started, we learned it all in business school, but I never had to do collections. I didn't even know about cash flow when I was in brand management. I had a nice big budget and I spent it, on a periodic basis. And, sometimes I had to cut it, sometimes I didn't. But, my first day I was making collection calls and it was the most ridiculous thing I thought, because I thought everybody paid their bills, but not really. And so, really, I think teaching people a multidisciplinary area so that they learn how to manage the business as well as do what they love, because they can think, oh, I love doing X, I want to be a photographer and have my own photography business, but they don't know how to manage the business. I think in medical school now they're doing that, so the doctors know how to run their businesses, and that is the first idea. The second idea, I kind of forgot.
I might be dating myself with this answer, but when I was in business school, there were 2 people who were doing the entrepreneur program, and we thought they were weird. Never occurred to us to go and see what they were doing. It just wasn't the paradigm. Was for us, you wanted to be in strategy consulting, corporate, market, brand management, and that's what everybody did. I think they would have had to force it at that time, on make part of the curriculum. But the culture was just not. I did the business school with friends, so it's really not an entrepreneur culture, so that makes it even more.
And I have my second idea. I came back. It's basically, I think that teaching the students that, when you're an entrepreneur, it's lonely at the top, all alone. We're together at least, but there are people who start their business and they're completely alone. And so to try to teach them how to form little mastermind groups for themselves and maybe have a support structure, prior to leaving and going out on their own. So they have somebody that has experience in different areas so that they can share their experiences, kind of like we do at EO and all these other WPO and different groups. That is a very, very valuable thing.
Okay, back over to Martin and back to Kathleen and then to Matt.
So first I want to thank you, Dennis, for putting together this incredible inaugural presentation. Over my career, so many presentations, and this has been really exciting and illuminating. What I find differentiates the entrepreneur from the worker is 2 key 5 years, I put this tremendous product together in Europe. I was going back and forth, New York, Paris. And I brought in $20 million after 20 years of working on this product for different portfolio managers in Europe. And then they decided to cancel it. Before, I mean, 20 million was available for the 4 largest. And here 20 million was about to come in, and they said, no, we changed our mind, we're not there. So that was crushing. So my wife said to me, don't bother with this. I had an offer at that point for a startup company, support that could hire, and they want to be in healthcare, no business plan, no resource money. They said, give it a try, and I'll give you half of whatever you earn. And I said, no, but my wife said, go for it, you hated it in days. And I think it's that issue of risk and reward and failure and success that differentiates the entrepreneur versus, as you say, the worker.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, in business, especially as an entrepreneur, when one door closes, another one opens. And sometimes it's not, I mean, when I was in school, liquor lamps, right? I mean, at the time, I was a college student, and we were building a nice big business in terms of building lamps for college students. And when I got that cease and desist letter, and then I finally talked to the attorney, said, listen, you really got pulled up. I was devastated, but you know what? You say, okay, that one door closed, what other door is going to open? And that led me into all these different ventures. But I need to talk about one story of risk, but ultimately potentially facing a huge failure. Was about 2007, Matt and I were running Hudson Horizons, and we had about 4 employees at the time. And literally, we had not much money in the bank, literally enough to pay our bills or even to pay the next payroll. And we didn't know how it was going to happen. I was talking to this one potential client, and it was for a very large website, and the largest of our time, over $100,000. And we started one of 22 companies. We got narrowed down to one of 8. I was talking to our client, Damien, our potential client, and he says, if you want to fly out here on your own dime to Las Vegas and meet with me and my team for 2 days, and granted, their team was taken from Google, from Yahoo. I mean, there were some serious players. And I forget how old we were at the time, but it was 5 or 6 years ago. And we literally looked at each other and said, let's do it. What's the worst case? We're going to be in Vegas for a couple of days. So we set out to go to Las Vegas. We met with their team for 2 days of 8 hours. We then flew back. He said, okay, I'm going to be in touch after I meet with everyone else. They contacted us on Christmas Eve, and they just wanted to congratulate us that we landed the contract. Contingent upon you guys are not working out of your dining room. Now, luckily, we were sharing space with another company, and at the time, we had told them, we had, I think, 12 employees at the time. We only had 5 of us. So we had to take down their signs. We put up our signs. Now, I don't believe in lying. I don't believe in selling what you can't, implement, just as long as you know you can do it. We knew we could get the job done. So it's kind of a smoke and mirrors type of thing. They flew out, and we won the job. We eventually launched the website a year later, and the client's a great friend of ours now. We tell them that story, and he laughs to this day. So.
Maybe one thing to add to this. You say risk, and you always say entrepreneurs say risk. I look at it, I'm an engineer, so I look at it from a different point of view. We decided where we wanted to be. And we looked at what we were doing in our corporate life, and this was never going to get us there. So if this was never going to get us there, you have to do something different. A lot of people say, oh, I want a fancy car, I want to do vacation, and so on and so on. And they're in these jobs, and then they keep going to the same job, which will never get them. And for us, our job was not going to get to the lifestyle that we wanted, so we took it. And when you look at it from that point of view, it's not a question of risk, it's you got to do something. You pick the best way you think that you're going to go, but that's what we do.
Okay, a couple more questions. I think Kathleen, you had your hand.
First of all, great presentation. It was wonderful. Email, I still get into my mind, oh my gosh, I'm making a pie. I'm making a pie. I'm making a pie. I live there, grew up on that. But very important question. How do you get chosen to go to the White House?
Flippable coin. Part of a group called the Crowdfunding Professionals Association, and a topic of conversation is going to be on crowdfunding. There's some workshops there after the main ceremony, and invitations were extended out to our organization and
curious, what is it, aside from the great parts of it, being a successful entrepreneur, what are maybe not so much of the glamorous parts of it? What is it that I might not like? I know you guys are obviously business owners, so you're very busy. So what are some things someone might want to keep in mind?
I've got an easy one. The night that you're at the bank at 5:45 and you've got to worry how much you're going to draw on your credit cards and make sure that the checks you wrote are not going to bounce overnight, that's fun. And as soon as you can get away from that, you're going to feel better. That's a tough moment in there.
I'm going to say too, sacrifice. I mean, you really sacrifice a lot. You sacrifice all those late hours working when you know everybody, your friends, your family are out doing whatever it is they're doing. You're sitting there, whether it's writing code or just doing something, working your butt off to try to get it done because you know that due date is tomorrow. You know you need to get that check in because you got to pay payroll. Sometimes that's really just something that you see. It's just a lot of sacrifice. It really is.
I would say doing the mind-numbing bookkeeping, accounting, entering the checks in, sending the invoices out. I mean, somebody has to do it, and when it's 3 people, I ended up doing it. And so, if you're this MBA student, and then you're going to be sitting there typing stuff up, and, after a while you say, oh, this is so easy, it shouldn't really bother me. But after a while, it's kind of when the challenge doesn't equal your ability, it just gets really boring. And so there are a lot of really boring things that you have to do that are very practical that you have to keep doing in order to, keep the big picture in mind and make sure that you get your business running.
Last question, right here. Mark, and thank you all for presenting. It's a question, I guess it's for all of you. Where does the traditional business plan fit in entrepreneurship?
All right, I'll start with that one because crowdfunding, specifically equity, in order to raise capital, you're going to need to be able to show a business plan. But what you write as your business plan, we all know as entrepreneurs that quickly goes out the window. So unless you're keeping your business plan up to date on a consistent basis, your business plan is going to be fast out of date. However, it's an amazing process to go through to uncover who you are, what's your market, who your competitors are, and how you're going to monetize and turn an idea into a profitable business. So I think a business plan is extremely important, but if you don't keep it up to date, it's going to go away pretty quickly.
They also say a goal not written down is just a dream. And so it's really important to write down where you want to be so you have a picture in your mind of what you want to achieve so that you can mobilize all of your resources towards achieving that goal. And so I think it is very important to write it down. And things can change and you can hit a bump in the road and have to go over, above, around, all that kind of thing. And then you can maybe change your goal if your goal is not as realistic, or you can increase your goal, depending on how fast your business is working. But you definitely need to get things written down on paper or else you're just all over the place.
Do all of you have up-to-date business plans?
No. But I have up-to-date pitch decks. And I think a pitch deck is now what we know in the startup world, and it's really in 12 slides, 12 to 15 slides, what your business is all about, what sets you apart from your competition, and why someone should either invest in you or take you on as a customer, or have you take them on as a customer.
All right. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say,
Well,
we
yeah,
did our last strategic review a couple of months ago, but we've already implemented everything that was in our plans for the product.
All right, I'm going to close this portion of the meeting down. Let's give a round of thanks. You guys can, if you want to move back to your seats, because I was going to now just, we only have a few minutes left. But I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you want to comment on
but their risk-taking appears to be fading. And there's some very, very interesting charts here, and with Dennis's permission, I just want to read one more little paragraph that I found kind of useful here for myself. For the first time since such records have been kept, the census found in 2008 that more Americans work for big businesses, those with at least 500 workers, which to us are very big businesses, I think, although it seems they're small ones. And the trend continues since. The work of running family businesses is also scared off younger generations, said Henry Hutchinson, president of the U.S. Honeycomb. So, you know, it sounds very strange that and maybe this is what you're trying to create the Feliciano Center for entrepreneurship, because it seems like over the last 10 years or so, the number of people who are taking risks to create entrepreneurial businesses is declining.
Well, that's going to be part of our mission to work on that. Thanks, Sunil. Any other comments, suggestions, pitches before we close? Yes, sir.
Hi, everybody. My name is Drew Knapp, and I live here in Montclair. I operate a company called Good Ideas, and we have 2 or 3 projects we're working on. We're looking for help in terms of technical co-founder or a group similar to Hudson Horizon, which would like to maybe partner with us. We're right on the verge of some pretty big monetization, and we just need a little push to get over the top. So we're looking for either that type of help or funding. Also, so the 3 projects we're working on, real briefly, greatertown.com is a community marketing site which is based on category and location. It's kind of like Craigslist meets MySpace for towns. And that's the first project. The second is we've purchased the asset of a former artist social network with 80,000 members in it and $1 million of code development in it, called myartspace.com. And we're looking for help to relaunch that. The third project is we've just started doing business development for an insurance broker who specializes in cyber insurance. She's one of the only brokers in the country that focuses only on cyber insurance. So if anyone has an interest in digital privacy or data breach issues, please come up and see me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Eddie.
Yeah, my name's Eddie Feliciano, and my wife and I, of course, we're happy that we have Dennis Bone as our director, to be honest with you. We're very thankful. But I have something to tell you guys as an entrepreneur, and my wife and I, we've had, at one point in our life, we've always been successful, I would have to say. But there was one point in our life that I remember we didn't sleep for about 2 months, right? We had a payroll to choke a horse. We had 800 employees. All right? And I just remember what her and I, we always thought. And the thought was, failure was never an option. And so, if you want to be an entrepreneur, failure can never be an option. That's all I want to share.
I didn't have any plans of pitching, but I'm not going to deny that offer. So, like I mentioned before, I'm an MBA student here, but I also co-authored a book where we featured hundreds of founders. So if anybody's interested in finding out more about entrepreneurship, more particularly starting a tech-based company, how to
Okay, we're right on time. I'll just say thanks for everybody coming out. I feel really incredibly happy with our presenters, our turnout, the quality of the folks here. And stay tuned for, I know most of you, not all of you, most of you joined the meetup. Please join the meetup. Get your friends to join the meetup. We're trying to grow that. And then stay tuned for when the next meetup will be. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.